So this is session 2 of Hope in Hard Times. And yesterday we said, although there are hard times, God can still be trusted. So today I thought we might just look at some biblical figures who went through hard times but were able to put their trust in God. And the first one we mentioned earlier in the year, and that's King David. David was king, he lived in a palace, he had servants to meet his every need. But David's son Absalom rebelled against him, and he gathered an army, and he was out to kill his father and take over the kingdom. David was forced to flee, he was hiding in caves, and he was relying on a few men who were loyal to him to bring him food and whatever he needed. So he was in an awful situation. But he knew that he was the one that God had appointed and anointed to be the king. And so he was able to write Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I could want." Now that's amazing trust. He trusted in God that he would work things out despite the circumstances that he was in. The next one to mention is Jeremiah, and we talked about him yesterday. He was the prophet who sent the message from God to the people to say, settle down in the land where you've been exiled. Live fruitful lives there. But he also gave them that message of hope. I know the plans I have for you, to give you a hope and a future. Now Jeremiah had been warning the people that they'd be overrun by Babylon and they would be taken into exile. And because of this, he was actually imprisoned as a troublemaker. They didn't like what he was saying. And just before the Babylonians came in and they destroyed the city, they actually burnt it, Jeremiah bought a field off his cousin, and they thought he was stupid for buying a field. But he had a word from God, which said, houses, fields and vineyards will again be bought in this land. So there's that hope. And he had this deeds of the property signed and sealed in a clay jar so they would keep for the time when people could see the prophecy had come true. God would restore the land. Another example of trusting in the promises of God was Abraham. Now Abraham came from the area of Mesopotamia. He settled for a while in what is now Israel, but he didn't belong there. He was a foreigner there. And while he was there, God promised him that he'd become the father of a great nation and that this would be their land. However, it would be his great, probably grandchildren who actually eventually entered the promised land. But while Abraham was living in that area, the area that would become the southern part of Israel, we're told he made a pact with the ruler who was there, and he named the area Beersheba. Then it says he planted a tamarisk tree. Well, big deal, he planted a tree. But apparently the tamarisk is a slow growing tree, and it would be a few generations before anyone got the benefit of it. It's a tree that provides not only shade, but it has this ability to put out moisture in the air, and so it works a little bit like air conditioning. Abraham was planting the tree for his descendants because God had promised them that that would be their land. The last one to look at is Paul. Philippians 4 says, rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. And then, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Sounds very hopeful, but where was he writing it from? He was in prison in Rome and facing very likelihood execution. But he had such trust in God that whatever happened to him, it was okay with him. So can we have that same trust in God, that whatever happens, it's okay with us?
Will you hide me in your shelter? Will you shade me with your wings? When the heat of day consumes me, let me drink from hidden streams. Drink from hidden streams. Will you lift my soul, courage to my soul. Will you lead me to repentance? Will you make temptation flee? When I'm filled with condemnation, will you show your scars to me? Show your scars to me. When the joy of morning carries, when the waves of darkness roll, will you shine your light of faithfulness, giving courage to my soul, courage to my soul. And in the day where trouble reigns, Lord, I shall not fear. The Comforter, the Counselor, the Savior is near. Will you hide me in your shelter?